Chapter 1026, Imprisoned Creatures. Even a man of big guts as Qin Zhizhong couldn't help but panic and become shocked. The sight in front of him was far beyond his imagination. The moment he could stabilize his footing, he frantically dashed backward instantly for tens of meters. Only after he reached another high boulder several meters back did he finally stop, gasping and panting. Headless humans, armless humans, legless humans. Some of them had even 10 centimeters wide holes in their chests. If these humans were just corpses, Qin Zhizhong wouldn't be that frightened, but he couldn't help but panic seeing that these people were absolutely not dead. All of them were still alive. That's right, they were all alive. It was very hard for him to imagine what kind of lifeform could still survive without a head. It was beyond his cognition that these monster-like humans looked extremely wretched and miserable. Yet, how come they still had signs of life? This is so fun and interesting. To think that some living creatures appeared here. How many years has it been? 1,000? Or is it 10,000 years? I finally see some foreign life forms. It's a human. Among the hundreds of incomplete humans was a man who lost his arms and had a bloody wound on his chest. He mechanically raised his head as his eyes looked at the direction of Qin Zhizhong's hiding place. It's very interesting to have a living human coming here. Is he also a dissident who has been exiled to this godforsaken place? But why didn't he get a corporeal punishment? Did he bribe the criminal officer? Is it because of his background? Whatever his background or origins, for him to come here intact means that he's not a friend but an enemy. Treat him as an enemy and kill him. Let's play with him and try his strength first, guys. It won't be too late to kill him after we ruin him, no? Who's going first? My turn. Me. Dumbfounded and tongue-tied, Qin Zhizhong looked at these people. No, they should be monsters. If he was given another chance, he would never want to come here and be stared at by this group of monsters. With his hiding spot already discovered, Qin Zhizhong no longer hid. He moved to the side of the boulder and shouted, "Who are you, people?" A legless man around 40 looking like a bearded middle-aged man looked particularly aggressive and ferocious. Floating like a ghost, he stopped 10 meters away from Qin Zhizhong and laughed wildly. You really don't know who we are? When the heck did the sacred pristine palace become so interesting to imprison such a dumb brat like you here? What sacred pristine palace? Qin Zhizhong frowned and said, I don't get what you mean. Nobody took me here. I came here with my master. Your master? The legless man blinked and suddenly burst into laughter. He's not some fucking dissident who got banished here, but just followed his master into this prison? That's so damn absurd and ridiculous. Is there anyone who would come into this prison willingly? Am I getting it wrong, or are you fucking shitting me? Pacing backwards several steps, Qin Zhizhong vigilantly asked, Who are you really? The legless man's face changed and his aura fiercely burst out instantly just like a gale that blasted forward, instantly pressuring Qin Zhizhong. However, at the same time his blasting aura rolled 4+ meters forward, it was blocked by a transparent shield as 2 black chains appeared out of thin air, binding his neck and waist. God damn it. The legless man looked furious, raving and roaring a few times before taking back his bursting aura. However, with his eyes staring fixedly at Qin Zhizhong, he said in a deep voice, We're all the most formidable warriors of Diablo Precantator clan. Those abominable robbers from Sacred Pristine Palace expanded their territory by using our clan. We killed and plundered for your campaigns. After they made us the scapegoat to the entire cultivation world, you all actually betrayed us, killed our king, massacred our people, and imprisoned all our loyal disciples who had paid so much. You're all so fucking wretched. Damnable abominations. Diablo Precantator clan? Sacred Pristine Palace? No tail, head, nor anything came to Qin Jizhong's mind. He was utterly confused. He was not a cultivator before and knew very little about the happenings in the cultivation world. However, he was sure of something at this moment. The fact that these people's ability to move and act was limited and subject to restrictions. They seemed to be unable to come out of the energy shield, nor were they able to free themselves from those black chains. Hence, they posed no threat to him. Gotta leave this place fast. Chen Zhizhong thought for a moment before turning around and frantically dashing the way he came from. Running as fast as he could, he shuttled back through the forested mountains and appeared before Tang Xiu 20 minutes after. Master. Tang Xiu opened his eyes and asked in surprise, "Weren't you searching around? Why did you come back so soon?" Chen Zhizhong gulped and hurriedly said, "I found some monsters in the valley tens of kilometers away, Master. They said that they're from Diablo Precantator clan and things like Sacred Pristine Palace I know nothing about. I didn't get anything they said, so I hurriedly returned."
Ah.
That's right. I also saw something. These monsters are all prisoners here. They are imprisoned. Diablo Precantator clan and Sacred Pristine Palace? Disbelief and incredulity were obvious on Tang Xiu's face. He had heard of these two names, not on Earth but in the Immortal world. It was recorded in the Immortal world that the Diablo Precantator clan and the Sacred Pristine Palace had once existed. But according to that ancient records, they were around more than 100,000 years ago. "Take me there," said Tang Xiu with a deep voice after he immediately got up. Quickly after, Tang Xiu arrived at the valley and was quite shocked when he saw several hundred monsters there. Even in his dream, he never expected that there would be the Diablo Precantator clan on Earth. It must be noted that this clan was said to have been exterminated by the Sacred Pristine Palace 100,000 years ago, in the Immortal world. Putting it bluntly, it was a true genocide. The incident led to the changes of the Sacred Pristine Palace that eventually led to its demise, destroyed by its former archenemies. Another human? The headless man fluttered and appeared behind the transparent energy shield as his voice came out of thin air. He pointed to Tang Xiu and his voice was heard again, "Are you the master of this insect? Are you here by yourself? Those bastards from the Sacred Pristine Palace didn't imprison you?" Tang Xiu observed these people before his eyes finally landed on the headless man again. Then, he said with an indifferent face, "My disciple said that you're Diablo Precantator clansmen. Is this true?" "That's right." The headless man's voice got louder and seething killing intent could be sensed in his voice. The legless man stared at Tang Xiu and fiercely asked, "Who are you? How did you get into this prison world?" "May I know your honorable name?" asked Tang Xiu. "This lord is the general of the Diablo Precantator clan, Garza Dracomando, known to my enemies as the Discalciate Diabolos," answered the legless man. "You haven't answered our question, brat." "Garza Dracomando, as in the Discalciate Diabolos of Diablo Precantator clan," exclaimed Tang Xiu incredulously. "Weren't you one of the 18 generals under the king of Diablo Precantator clan? The Discalciate Diabolos who laid waste to 36 immortal kingdoms and massacred their armies of 100 million strong? You know this seat?" "Who are you?" asked the legless man in surprise. Tang Xiu cupped his fists and introduced himself. "My name is Tang Xiu, a junior of the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect from 100,000 years after your Diablo Precantator clan was destroyed. My Vermilion Bird Holy Sect has been in existence in the Immortal world for 1,000,000 years, so you must have heard of it." The faces of several hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen drastically changed at that instant. Due to the fearsome reputation and prestige of the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect, this sect was not a strange name to them, although their immortal kingdom in the Immortal world was far away from the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect's territory. "Tang Xiu? You have a peculiar aura and your soul is very strange. Have you ever died and your soul occupied someone's mortal coil?" asked the legless man after observing Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu raised his eyes and nodded. Yes, I have. Then how did you come here? This is the prison world created by the sacred pristine palace to imprison us, asked Discalciate Diabolos. No one except those from the sacred pristine palace can enter this place. This world is not the immortal world, but on another plane. Tang Xiu shook his head and said, although I have no idea how this prison world connects to Earth. The sacred pristine palace you just mentioned has long been destroyed more than 100,000 years ago, while the remaining disciples of this sect were all massacred by the ancient gore-fiend Diabolos. That gore-fiend geezer? So it turned out to be gore-fiend Diabolos. It's retribution. It's all fated punishment. How could the sacred pristine palace fend off the revenge of their powerful enemies without us, Diablo Precantator clan? Gore-fiend Diabolos, huh? This seat once massacred hundreds of thousands of clans and tribes with him in the past. I didn't expect him to come back from the immortal sea of evil. So they've died, huh? But god damn it. Pity this seat can't escape this place, or I could have them beheaded, ripped out their hearts and scattered their souls by my own hands. It's really unexpected that it was the enemy who gave us our revenge. Hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen fell into ecstasy. But suddenly, they all fell into silence as all of them shut their eyes and lay down on the ground, followed by bizarre notes that came out from them as though they were chanting and holding memorial services. Tang Xiu calmly observed them until all of them stood up again. Then, he slowly asked, I don't know what happened between you and the sacred pristine palace. I just want to know something. You now learned that your arch-nemesis has already been destroyed. So, do you have any plans for the future? Plan? The hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen were all bewildered and at a loss. The drive that motivated them to survive was to kill off the sacred palace's enemies first. Having been betrayed by the sacred pristine palace and now that all their enemies were now gone, they suddenly lost the spiritual pillar that was the reason for their existence. Suddenly, Tang Xiu asked again, since you haven't thought about it, then let me change my question. You should have been imprisoned by the sacred pristine palace for more than 100,000 years here. But it's impossible for you all to live this long in a place with negligible world spiritual energy. How can you still live until now? It's because of the Diablo Precantator forbidden curse, the life and death nightmare. Diablo Precantator forbidden curse? The life and death nightmare? Wearing a disbelieving and incredulous look, Tang Xiu hurriedly asked, that legend is real? Such a dreadful curse really exists? Chapter 1027, Requiting Favors. While quietly listening to the conversation between Tang Xiu and the Diablo Precantator clansmen, a great shock hit Qin Zhizhong's whole being. Even in his dreams, to think that his master Tang Xiu actually came from another world that all humanity longed for, the legendary immortal world. At the same time, he was also shocked by these Diablo Precantator clansmen. They had been imprisoned here for hundreds of thousands of years and yet still survived to the present, something that was much more unbelievable and mysterious than the myth itself. What exactly is the Diablo Precantator forbidden curse and the life and death nightmare, master? Chen Zhizhong inquired while suppressing his shock. It's a fearsome curse exclusive to the Diablo Precantator clan known as life and death nightmare, explained Tang Xiu. Is this curse very powerful? Asked Chen Zhizhong with a curious face. Narrowing his eyes, Tang Xiu glanced at the Diablo Precantator clansman and slowly narrated. That's something told in the legend that the legendary magus of this clan is proficient in casting a very mysterious and secret magic curse. This curse has no effect on others aside from their clansmen. Once the Diablo Precantator clansmen use this curse on themselves, their lifespan will increase by tens of million times with 10,000 years in a cycle where they can only wake up for 100 years, for every cycle and spend the rest of the cycle time sleeping. It's for this reason that they can live for so long, much longer than the immortals who are at the same cultivation level as them. The face of Discalciate Diabolos turned grim and his murderous aura seemed to have condensed into substance as he said fiercely, "You're right. Everything said about this legend is true. I just don't know whether you're lucky or not since you happened to meet us when we're at the waking phase. The life and death nightmare is a secret curse of my Diablo Precantator clan which indeed can make our people live for a long time. Yet, it's also the alternative of death itself. We can only be awake for 100 years, but every time we wake up, the world changes along with everything we know. When we haven't yet fully understood the new world, we then fall into slumber yet again for nearly 10,000 years, only to wake up 100 years later again. The cycle continues on and on. It becomes torture and torment no average men can ever imagine to feel. If we did have a choice and weren't forced by the situation, there wouldn't have been anyone from my clan to cast this life and death nightmare curse on themselves." Tang Xiu gazed at these Diablo Precantator clansmen with some pity. He never knew what situation these people faced, but the Discalciate Diabolos made it clear that only agony and torment were the results of this curse, that every member of this clan would rather die than seek such long lifespan yet limited in each cycle. Discalciate Diabolos gradually took back his murderous aura. Then, he looked at Tang Xiu and asked in a deep voice, "Disciple of Vermilion Bird Holy Sect, can you help us escape from this place? Frankly speaking, my hands are tied now even though I do really want to help you." Tang Xiu shook his head and said, "Your power may have declined, less than 1,000th of your prime, but you should be able to sense that there's a big issue in my body and soul. The current me is far too weak, and regardless of how eager I am to help you, there's nothing I can do. Unless I can restore my power to the perfected golden immortal stage." The man thought for a long while and nodded wordlessly. Then, he said with a regretful face, "You're right. It's indeed nigh on impossible with your current power. This damn Diablo array is too abstruse to crack. Not even those at the perfected golden realm stage can break it unless they really comprehend the Diablo array. In the beginning, there were tens of millions of Diablo Precantator clan's warriors here. But no matter how hard we tried, we have never been able to break it, and couldn't escape from this place." Tang Xiu frowned and said, "You mean, there were tens of millions of your clansmen warriors imprisoned here? But how come there are only you remaining?" Discalciate Diabolos bitterly smiled and said, "Freedom and slaughter are instincts endowed to my clan. Without freedom, my clansmen might as well choose to commit suicide." Tens of millions of elite warriors of my clan with the weakest at the celestial immortal stage and tens at the perfected golden immortal stage, yet they chose to commit suicide. How fate ordained the most shameful way of death to fall on my clansmen. "But why are you still alive, though?" asked Tang Xiu. While pointing to his chest, he replied, "It's the flame in this heart that must keep burning. It's the blood of our enemies that must be shed to wash away our shame. The choice of those tens of millions of my clansmen, the abysmal and worst luck that befell us. Some of us chose to ignite the flame of revenge. For a long time must we survive, all to wait for the day we can escape and see the light of day and use the blazing flame of revenge in our hearts to burn all the traitors and betrayers from the sacred pristine palace. It's just unfortunate for you that all the people of the sacred pristine palace have been killed more than 100,000 years ago." Tang Xiu shook his head and said, "You've been barely lingering on your last breath of life, yet you can't wash away your shame with their blood. But thankfully, your enemies are dead and your hatred-bound hearts can be freed now." Discalciate Diabolos slowly turned around and looked behind him, at the hundreds of his clansmen who had been dragging out their feeble existences. He saw the gradually dissipating anger on their faces that now was being replaced by deep despair. Suddenly, he let out an ugly smile which was more unsightly than crying as he wildly laughed before shouting, "All my clansmen, did you hear it? Our enemies are dead. They are all dead. We're still alive now, but what for? Isn't the sacred pristine palace already destroyed? All the wait we have been enduring has given us the result, so what are we still alive for?" Amid the rave of madness, He suddenly raised his arm and a 4+ meters long warblade suddenly appeared out of thin air in his hand. Hundreds of his fellow clansmen also unleashed each of their immortal weapons, raising them up high in the air. Outside the array, Tang Xiu's countenance drastically changed as he saw the actions of hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen. He then let out a deafening shout. Legend has it that the Diablo Precantator clan are those who understood grace and gratitude the most. I brought you the news of the sacred pristine palace's destruction. Is it not a great grace that gives you a chance to liberate yourselves? Will you just commit suicide now and leave your debt unpaid? The several hundred Diablo Precantator clansmen went stiff. They loved fighting, slaughter, and freedom. They had been a simple clan far from intrigues and machinations, the very reason why their clan was never the leader of a force and could only be a vassal race of a certain power. The biggest merits their clan had been proud of was loyalty, and sincerity was their strength. Tang Xiu's reminder made them temporarily cancel their thought to commit suicide. Hundreds of pairs of eyes stared at Tang Xiu, as Discalciate Diabolos then asked, "Disciple of Vermilion Bird Holy Sect, how would you like us to requite you our debt?" Tang Xiu was silent for a moment, then suddenly pointed to Qin Zhizhong and replied with a deep voice. Rumor has it that your Diablo Precantator clan has a secret art to turn other races' physiques to yours, while also inheriting your bloodline, all the while transforming them into the most perfect warrior. In any case, you're all determined to leave this world, so you might as well help my disciple. Discalciate Diabolos deeply gazed at Qin Zhizhong before turning around and exchanged words with several hundreds of his clansmen. Then, he nodded and said, "He's the first to discover us in the past 100,000 years, so it's fate that made him the predestined friend of our Diablo Precantator clan. Although the current him is very weak, you've given us a grace, a favor we shall requite well. But all this requires consent from both sides. We shall comply with your request, but you need to enter this array if you want to obtain our heritage and become a perfect warrior. But once you come inside, you'll never be able to get out." Tang Xiu turned to look at Qin Zhizhong and said with a deep voice, "Zhizhong, our ancestors once said that glory comes with danger. A vast path has now been laid bare before you, so I shall ask you. Do you dare or to enter this array to accept the inheritance of these Diablo Precantator clan seniors?" Qin Zhizhong's complexion changed. Should the Discalciate Diabolos tell the truth? What if I really can't go out after entering the array? Can I endure the torment of loneliness of being imprisoned for countless years? No. His heart shook and he suddenly recalled another scenario. His master, Tang Xiu, was an expert proficient in arrays. He might be able to break the array in front of him. At this moment in time, Qin Zhizhong was in a dilemma. If his master couldn't break the array, then he'd be imprisoned for eternity. But if he could crack it down, didn't it mean that it would be a huge chance for him? What should I choose? As time went by, Qin Zhizhong finally made up his mind and decided to choose to believe in his master. He had decided to walk on the path to immortality, a journey and a game between life and death in and of itself. If he won, then he'd be reborn and achieve greatness in the future. If he lost, he could only blame his bad luck. "I'll take the chance, master," replied Qin Zhizhong with a resolute face and firm nod. Tang Xiu looked satisfied, nodding and loudly replying, "Then you're worthy of being Tang Xiu's disciple. Just with your mentality and state of mind, you will have great achievements in the future. Then go inside. As long as you can get the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan seniors, I'll definitely become a perfected golden immortal in the future and I'll absolutely be able to save you." "Understood," replied Qin Zhizhong. He then walked towards the hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen. The transparent energy shield didn't stop his footsteps and he easily entered the array and arrived in front of Discalciate Diabolos. Discalciate Diabolos looked at him with appreciation and highly praised. "My clan has always held unquestionable respect to those with heroic spirit, tough men with undying will and determination. You're one hell of a man, a real tough guy." Qin Zhizhong took a deep breath. He turned to look at Tang Xiu and turned back again as he immediately cupped his fist and saluted. In this way, then I must trouble you for the grace, seniors. Discalciate Diabolos shifted his sight to Tang Xiu and said in a deep voice, dying is much better than passing into oblivion. I hope you don't deceive us, and I hope everything you said is true, that all those from the sacred pristine palace have been decimated. Trust starts with truth and ends with truth, said Tang Xiu solemnly. Discalciate Diabolos nodded in response. He suddenly let out a sharp, long howl. Suddenly, hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen floated up tens of meters high at the same time, each constantly changing their positions and soon forming a pattern like a spinning disc. Chapter 1028, The Best Salvation and Ending is Death. Scarlet blood continually flowed from hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen. Their bodies began cracking as though lands that struck by drought. Blood fluttered and rushed into the disc-shaped array, and gradually, the entire sky was painted blood red. It was the forbidden art. The most dreadful and unfathomable art belonging to the demon Precantator clan was being displayed at this moment. The blood pillar extended downward from the disc-shaped array, covering Chen Zhizhong underneath as ancient and primitive runes poured and flowed into his body. Ugh! Roar! The moment the blood column covered Chen Zhizhong, a sharp scream of pain came out of his mouth. Along with time, his screams turned into the likes of a beast's roars due to the rending pain. Standing outside the array, Tang Xiu just smilingly watched Chen Zhizhong's pained and twisted face. Such an inheritance process brought along absolute pain, but the benefits gained after the pain was equally enormous. He did consider getting the demon Precantator clan's inheritance himself, but he knew better. Once he chose to get it, he would never be able to continue cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, a case where the loss outweighed the gains. All things considered, once he achieved great success in the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, he would be infinitely stronger than the result he could get from the demon Precantator's inheritance. Immediately after, Tang Xiu sat cross-legged right where he stood. He released his perception to seep into the small world array. What he must do right now was to devote himself to comprehend this array. He wouldn't have to do so prior to this and could have retreated with Chen Zhizhong. But the current situation begged different measures. He must fully comprehend all the arrays in this place and then crack the array in front to rescue and take out Chen Zhizhong from the inside. Even though he could leave by himself, his disciple would be trapped forever otherwise. Time fleeted by and 6 days passed by in the blink of an eye. When Tang Xiu opened his eyes, the blood column that shrouded Chen Zhizhong gradually disappeared from this piece of the world. But countless ancient and primitive runes surged toward Chen Zhizhong's naked body like tidal waves. Tang Xiu could even see those countless runes etching themselves in Chen Zhizhong's muscles, viscera, and bones. It's successful? Expectation and anticipation were evident in Tang Xiu's eye. But when his sight shifted to the spot tens of meters high in the air, a look of sadness could be seen gleaming in his eyes. The hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen now looked like dried-out corpses suspended in the air, holding their one last breath and waiting for the inheritance process to complete. At this moment, Discalciate Diabolos suddenly opened his eyes, and only the shadow of death was visible in his eyes, as he scrutinized Chen Zhizhong's body. He was perfectly aware that his clan would not completely disappear from the world. With Chen Zhizhong inheriting their heritage and having his physique transformed, he was now the last seedling of their Diablo Precantator clan. In his bloodline now flowed the blood of his clansmen, and within his soul now etched the insignia of Diablo Precantator clan. So long as he didn't die, their clan would be able to take root, and a newly born Diablo Precantator clan would re-emerge yet again. Your Excellency Tang Xiu, the disciple of Vermilion Bird Holy Sect. The promise has been fulfilled and grace has been requited. We're about to vanish from this world, and it is our wish that you can save the seed of our clan. Shall he live for 10,000s of years for the days to come, and be extended shall the bloodlines of our Diablo Precantator clan? Said Discalciate Diabolos slowly. Tang Xiu raised his right hand and placed it on his left chest, pledging. Then I, Tang Xiu, shall vow to free my disciple from this place and lead him to infinite greatness. And shall be the bloodlines and fighting spirit of your Diablo Precantator clan to return to the immortal world, and let your clan reclaim back your former glory in the countless years to come. Thank you. The warblade reappeared in front of Discalciate Diabolos, followed by the reappearance of immortal weapons before the hundreds of his clansmen to end their own life. Return. Discalciate Diabolos roared as he vanished. Return. 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 Hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen also roared as they picked up their own blades and hacked themselves. As flames burst from their bodies, the blazing flame began to burn them inside out until they were completely gone. It was a pure and complete death. The uncommon death where the souls truly vanished into nothingness. Chen Zhizhong slowly opened his eyes as 2 lines of tears streamed down his face, dripping down to his bronze chest and finally falling down to the earth beneath his feet. He then kowtowed 3 times and prostrated 9 times, the greatest salutation and homage a human could perform. After finishing all those, Chen Zhizhong shifted his sight to Tang Xiu with a sorrowful face. After stopping before the transparent energy shield, he kowtowed to Tang Xiu 3 times and asked as he got up, "Why, master?" Tang Xiu knew what Chen Zhizhong was referring to. A complicated look filled his eyes. He shook his head and said, "I'm sure that I can crack this array and break this prison to free the Diablo Precantator clansmen. They could have left this small world and come to a wonderful world outside." "Then why?" asked Chen Zhizhong again. "You don't know anything about them, nor do you know those of them who have cast the life and death nightmare curse on themselves." Tang Xiu shook his head and said, "Living for them is nothing but a torment, a never-ending pain and torture. Death is just their salvation, the best ending and the ultimate relief for them. But as long as they're alive, will not be hope for them in the future, master?" Chen Zhizhong argued. "Who can be sure that no one can remove the curse they cast on themselves in the future? You're someone omnipotent in my heart, you will definitely have the means to do so in the future. Let's not speak about the future and see what we must face at the present," said Tang Xiu with a deep voice. "If I were to release and take them out of this small world to our earth, do you think I can have them under control with their bloodthirst nature? With just humanity on earth, can these Diablo Precantator clansmen with golden immortal stage cultivation be stopped? Only earth littered by corpses and rivers filled with blood remain should the fight between both sides occur. Keep in mind that what I just said is the best ending possible. If we must think about the bad ending, they can easily blow up the earth, leading to the complete destruction of humanity and earth. They can tear apart the spatial barrier with their power to another world and even find their way back to the immortal world. But can you bear the fate of the earth being destroyed and the end of humanity? Can you bear to just watch helplessly as your loved ones and family die in the hands of the Diablo Precantator clansmen?" Every word Tang Xiu said was powerfully spoken. Chen Zhizhong was utterly stunned by Tang Xiu's explanation. He just had a bit of wondering as to why Tang Xiu would deceive hundreds of demon Precantator clansmen. But now, he could understand it. It wasn't that his master didn't want to save them, but the fact that he couldn't bear the dreadful situation after he released them. His tightly clenched fists loosened. Ashamed and uneasy were cast on his face as he knelt yet again before Tang Xiu. He recalled his master's last request to the Diablo Precantator clan. He remembered all the benefits he just obtained because of that request. The regret in his heart grew thicker as indebted and grateful feelings toward Tang Xiu crazily grew inside him. "I'm sorry, master." Tang Xiu's complexion eased as he shook his head and said, "No apology needed. We are master and disciple, to begin with. In the brutal immortal world, we only have 2 kinds of people we can call the closest and our own. The first one being all the blood-connected relatives, and the second one being similar to the relationship between fathers and sons, master and disciples. You're my disciple, that means you're my closest relative. Regardless of any mistakes you made, I'll never blame you as long as it's redeemable. Masters and disciples were such as fathers and sons. The line was deeply etched into Chen Zhizhong's heart and firmly engraved into his soul. All right, get up now, said Tang Xiu. Now tell me, how far have you comprehended the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan, and how much benefits have you obtained? Chen Zhizhong stood up and cupped his fists again, saying, Master, I don't know how strong I am now, though I'm indeed much stronger than before. I have a feeling that even if there's a hill before me, I can blow it up with just one punch. Tang Xiu happily nodded and asked again, what else? Hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen seniors passed on all of their lifelong experience, heritage, and studies to me. The knowledge they passed to me is simply enormous, including their witchcraft, secret arts, and spell casting. In a strict sense, I'm now one of them. Very good. Tang Xiu nodded and said, you should be very clear about the commitment I made to the seniors of this clan. It is also my wish for you to regain back the former glory of the Diablo Precantator clan. Let all living beings know that the Diablo Precantator clan still exists instead of going extinct 100,000 years ago, be it immortals, demons, wizards, ghosts, monsters, spirits, and deities. Keep living and live a good life. You're my disciple whom I hope to be able to follow my footsteps, who will also obtain infinite achievements and become a supreme being in the immortal world. It is also my hope for you to have the opportunity to accompany me in the campaign in the higher plane that is God's realm. A great devotion filled Chen Zhizhong's mind as he shouted, I'll definitely follow your footsteps through your campaign, Master. Be it in the immortal world or God's realm. I, Chen Zhizhong, will forever be a disciple closest to you. Tang Xiu laughed loudly in response and then said, Great. I was once a supreme back in the immortal world, and I'll also become the supreme in God's realm. You must not be worse than me as my disciple. What? Chen Zhizhong's expression suddenly froze and disbelief filled his eyes. He looked at Tang Xiu and asked stutteringly, Mus. Master, could you repeat what you just said? You said, why you were once a supreme in the immortal world? I won't hide it from you anymore now that you've received the Diablo Precantator clan's inheritance. Tang Xiu nodded and said, I had been once a supreme in the immortal world, a mighty expert who stood above the myriad races there. My enemies ambushed me, then I eventually crossed the plane and returned back to Earth. But keep in mind that you must not tell anyone about this matter, even your closest people. Otherwise, once the news that I'm still alive passes on to my several enemies who are also supremes in the immortal world, then you can expect that we'll all die. Chapter 1029, It's Still a Harvest All the Same. A dignified and solemn look appeared in Chen Zhizhong's face and eyes. He had obtained an inheritance and gained enormous knowledge as a result. To think that his master was once at the supremacy stage in the immortal world, yet he was still ambushed by the enemy. Although he didn't know how his master survived, he could tell how catastrophic it was like to think that he ended up at the bottom. All in all, it meant one thing, his master's enemies were all very powerful. At least people who he couldn't afford to fight against. And thus, it was critical to block all the news about this matter. Don't worry, Master. I'll never tell a soul. Not even my family, said Chen Zhizhong. Just remember it well. Tang Xiu nodded and said, anyways, let's not waste time here. I've already figured out most of this array's features. I should be able to crack it 2 days later and we should be able to leave directly then. You can consolidate your current cultivation while I analyze this array. Understood. After saluting, Chen Zhizhong turned around and walked to a bluestone nearby, sitting cross-legged and steadily stabilizing his present cultivation level. Unwilling to waste more time, Tang Xiu fully set his mind on cracking the array. He still needed to spend some efforts to crack the array laid out by the Diablo Precantator clan, since he only had bits of knowledge about their arrays, whereas the arrays arranged by the sacred pristine palace had similar principles to the ones he had comprehended. Unfortunately, his cultivation was still too low despite how great the efforts he spent. Otherwise, he'd have been able to comprehend the array in front of him in a flash and easily break it with a flick of his finger. 2 days passed by quickly. When Tang Xiu had taken control of the entire small world formation, he had comprehended all the abstruseness of this array. The arrays here were all connected and subtly interlinked. Fortunately for him, he had directly analyzed the entire small world array and comprehended it now. If he were to directly analyze it, it was very likely that he couldn't fully understand it. The design of this array formation and several novels outlining methods about it still gave some benefits to Tang Xiu. Break. Along with a small movement of Tang Xiu's finger, the layers of transparent energy shield that covered the valley suddenly rippled and an opening suddenly appeared in a flash. Master. At the moment Tang Xiu broke the array, Chen Zhizhong had already woken up from his cultivation. As the opening was getting bigger, he bolted lightning fast towards Tang Xiu. Due to the sudden increase in his cultivation, however, he was still unable to control his power and he would have hit Tang Xiu's arm if it wasn't for Tang Xiu moving aside to avoid it. Tang Xiu laughed at him and then said, "Well, it will take some time for you to fully stabilize your cultivation level and control your current power. I think you need to hand over your business to your son after we get back. Even if he doesn't want to do so, tell him to return to Star City to take it over. You're to go to our sex domain and cultivate in seclusion. Your cultivation will yield double the results if you practice there." "And where's our sex land, master?" asked Chen Zhizhong quickly. "Nine Dragons Island," said Tang Xiu with a smile. Chen Zhizhong understood quickly. He knew the backstage story back when Tang Xiu purchased Nine Dragons Island. Tang Xiu didn't have enough money then, so he provided most of the funds for him. In addition, he also knew that Tang Xiu carried out a reconstruction project there, although he didn't expect that his master would establish the Tang sect and chose that island as the sect's holy ground. "I'll arrange it right away once I go back, master." Tang Xiu nodded in response and his body flashed towards the array. Under Chen Zhizhong's puzzled eyes, his figure kept flashing and a small twister was formed while pieces of artifacts kept falling into Tang Xiu's hands and were stored into his interspatial ring. After a long while, Tang Xiu came out from the formation and threw the war blade to Chen Zhizhong, smilingly saying, "This war blade belonged to Discalciate Diabolos. He was once a famous and prominent figure in command of countless Diablo Precantator clan's experts. This war blade of his is also a fine immortal weapon. You must refine this war blade and use it as your weapon before you advance into the immortal stage. When you're powerful enough and have refined this war blade in the future, you'll have a genuine immortal weapon for yourself." "Understood," replied Chen Zhizhong happily. Although the Diablo Precantator clan left behind a large number of objects and all of them were taken away by Tang Xiu, he was perfectly aware that he was the person who benefited the most. Just the inheritance of this clan and the transformation of his physique was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him. As for the weapons, they were nothing but external objects. However, he didn't know that all the weapons and interspatial rings left behind by the Diablo Precantator clan Tang Xiu had just taken away contained many treasures even in the immortal world. He had no idea how valuable these objects were. It must be noted that the number of Diablo Precantator clansmen who left their interspatial rings and weapons behind was not just in the hundreds, but more than 12 million. Tang Xiu's technique to gather all of them was so fast and yet he still needed a long time to collect all of them. Fortunately, he directly refined these precantators' interspatial rings, otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to store so many objects. Chen Zhizhong had never been to the immortal world and his knowledge about immortal weapons was very limited. Otherwise, he would have realized that the value of these immortal tools and weapons taken away by Tang Xiu was enough for him to buy a vast area of a starfield in the immortal world while recruiting millions of immortals to work for him. "All right, let's head out." Tang Xiu glanced at the fingers on his left hand happily and smilingly said. Chen Zhizhong hurriedly said, "But we haven't explored this small world yet, Master. If there's a lot of ores here, we must bring them out, no? I already have this small world under my control, so I can easily sense everything here through the array. Tang Xiu lightly smiled and said, this place is actually a prison. There are no other precious ores except those 36 celestial stones. I'll take them away directly when we leave this place and this small world will cease to exist. Chen Zhizhong quickly understood and said with a smile, I'd like to learn array formations from you later, Master. Huh? Don't tell me you have no knowledge about arrays and the inheritance you obtained from the hundreds of Diablo precantator experts? Asked Tang Xiu. I did obtain it, but they are all wizardry arrays. And they are not that powerful either. Chen Zhizhong forced a smile and said, their arrays pale in comparison to the really powerful ones in the immortal world, Master. Tang Xiu chuckled and said, that's true. The Diablo precantator clan boasted formidable individual power. What they pursued were individual might and the quality of their weapons and regarded geomancy array as auxiliary, and rather neglected it. All right then, since you want to learn it, I'll teach you later. I forgot something. Try to unleash your strongest strike. Let me see what stage you've reached now. Chen Zhizhong accepted the order and flashed away to the distance. A kilometer away, he unleashed a powerful punch at the hilltop in front of him. One strike. Yet, the tens of meters high hilltop was directly blasted. The might of the punch was comparable to a strike by a nascent soul stage expert. In the next moment, he brandished the war blade and hacked it towards the big mountain. The powerful bombardment created a huge hole a dozen meters wide and 100 meters deep on the massif. How do you see my current power, Master? Asked Chen Zhizhong hurriedly as he returned to Tang Xiu's front with an excited face. Not bad. Tang Xiu nodded and said, your power is enough to match experts at the late stage of nascent soul. I can't compare to you in terms of cultivation level, but the likelihood of you being killed by me is high if we fight. There are several reasons for this. Firstly, you're still unable to fully control your power. Secondly, you're lacking in combat experience, especially between experts. Thirdly, even experts at nascent soul stage will find it hard to win me. Deep worship filled Chen Zhizhong's eyes as he replied, well, your power is kinda progressing too fast, Master. I still remember when we first met. Your strength was probably far weaker before I got the inheritance. But it only took you a year and a half and you're already able to defeat the nascent soul stage experts. That's way too amazing. I think you'll be able to cross the tribulation and ascend to become an immortal in a few years, no? Tang Xiu couldn't help but burst into laughter. How can it be so easy to cross a tribulation and become an immortal? It's just a matter of course for one to progress very fast at an early stage of their cultivation. But it will be more difficult to advance in cultivation in the future as it will take more time to break through each layer. My luck is quite good and I got many fortuitous encounters. That's the reason why I can contend with experts at the nascent soul stage in just 1.5 years. But it's hard to say in the future. Chen Zhizhong was stunned and suddenly realized that he didn't know much about the cultivation path. The inheritance he obtained from the Diablo precantator clan was limited to the circumstances faced by this clan as well as their cultivation, far from being enough to grasp even the common and superficial knowledge in the immortal world. However, his worship towards Tang Xiu didn't diminish even if the latter admitted such. After all, he knew how mighty powerful those at the supremacy stage in the immortal world were. Not even in the heyday of the Diablo precantator clan had any of its members broken through to the supremacy stage. Even all the previous sages and kings of this clan were only at the perfected golden immortal stage. Quickly after, Tang Xiu and Chen Zhizhong appeared at the exit passage to the grotto. They looked back at the small world in front of them. Without flinching, Tang Xiu then told Chen Zhizhong to wait outside as he immediately cast a technique to break the whole array. Come to me, celestial stones. As his shout rolled forward, 36 celestial stones flew to him and he directly stored them in his interspatial ring. These celestial stones only had small uses for him, but they were the best treasures for Gu Yan and Ji Qimei. With them now living on Earth and Earth itself not having immortal energy, the rate of restoring their power and healing was very slow. A tremor shook the earth and the mountains swayed. Tang Xiu watched as the small world in front of him gradually became illusory. He no longer stayed there and his figure was as though turned into lightning as he bolted outside through the passage in the grotto. Whoosh! After he appeared outside the cave in just less than a minute, the entire mountain peak then collapsed along with the destruction of the small world. Chapter 1030, Accidents on the Way Back. Tang Xiu took Chen Zhizhong and Tang 28's group of 5 into the sky as they stood hundreds of meters high midair, looking at the collapsed mountain peak. The Diablo Precantator clan was pitiable, while the sacred pristine palace turned into an abomination. Whatever happened between them hundreds of thousands of years ago, be it right or wrong, and all the grievances, enmities, and whatnot, it had now come to a complete end with the destruction of the small world and the collapse of this mountain peak. As of now, only a deep puzzle occupied Tang Xiu's mind. What exactly was the existence of Earth? Why would so many strange pocket worlds connect to it? However, he also realized that it was very difficult for him to figure it out in a short time no matter how long this question plagued his mind. Thus, he no longer thought about this matter and led Chen Zhizhong, Tang 28, and the rest out of Changbai Mountain quickly. Halfway on the road back, he separated from Chen Zhizhong. Please take care, master. I'll be waiting for you in Star City. Chen Zhizhong looked somewhat reluctant. The journey and the experience this time gave him a very deep impression that deepened his feeling towards Tang Xiu as his true master. I won't stay in the capital for a long time, said Tang Xiu with a smile. Go and take care of your business. I'll take you to Nine Dragons Island after I go back. Acknowledged, master, replied Chen Zhizhong as he left quickly. Beijing. It was the first time for Tang 28 and the other 4 kids visiting the capital. They all knew that Beijing was the capital of China and one of the most bustling metropolises in the country. It made them quite curious despite being much more mature than their peers. Where are we going, sect master? Asked Tang 28 after they exited the airport. You're not allowed to ask any more questions later, remember that, said Tang Xiu. You just need to follow me wherever I go. Keep in mind that you're my shadow later, and you 4 are Tang 28's shadows. Learn to stay silent and execute my orders whenever you're with me. Tang 28 and the 4 others hurriedly nodded and didn't dare to speak again. Tang Xiu's visit to Beijing this time was due to the 80th birthday of his grandfather, Tang Guisheng. He wouldn't have come back in a rush if he was abroad. But now that he was in China and on the way back home, he decided to stop by at the capital to congratulate the old patriarch. As they caught a cab and Tang Xiu told the driver the Tang family's address, the taxi driver shot a strange look at him and asked, "You're not from Beijing, are you, little brother? A curfew has been imposed on that area in recent days. Even if I send you there, I can't get you to the address. Just stopping by and parking nearby." A curfew over there? Why? Asked Tang Xiu in surprise. With a mystifying voice, the taxi driver replied, "Then you must be an outsider, little brother. So you have no idea about it. Tomorrow is the 80th birthday of the old patriarch of the Tang family. The Tangs were very low-key in the past, but recently they are getting more and more powerful. It's just so happened that the Tang's old patriarch is celebrating his 80th birthday, so the Tangs seem to be preparing a great deal for something. Hence, so as to avoid anyone creating trouble, a curfew was imposed on the streets around their residence. It's fine during the daytime, but the streets will be sealed off starting from 10 p.m. and no vehicles are allowed to approach the area." This Tang family seems very famous. Tang Xiu nodded. The taxi driver gave him, "Don't speak carelessly because you're ignorant," look. After starting the car, he spoke again. Who doesn't know the Tang in the entire capital, little brother? I bet those with a bit of power in China definitely know who Tang Xiu is. The Tang's old patriarch used to be the elder of the nation, a real big shot and a former general. What's more, have you ever heard about the Tang family's arch-nemesis, the Yaos? The latter inexplicably fell into demise last year. I'm sure that even if the present Tang family is not ranked as the best house in the capital, they are definitely in the top 3. They are that powerful? Tang Xiu confirmed with a light smile. The taxi driver didn't notice Tang Xiu's expression and kept holding the steering wheel while looking at the road ahead. He nodded and said, "Of course, they are powerful. Pity that I didn't reincarnate into that house, though. I would have lived a kingly life if I were a member of the Tangs." You got no idea of how prestigious the status and identity the Tang House's members in the capital enjoy, do you? Some time ago, a scion from the Tang House called Tang Wei smacked the renowned Heavenly Grace Club of Beijing and made a big ruckus there. Can you guess the ending? Nobody can do shit to this Prince Tang Wei. On the contrary, the Heavenly Grace Club's boss and the few silk pants who offended him bowed their heads to apologize to him. The grapevine has it that young Master Tang Wei racked quite a fortune from the compensation they gave him. Tang Wei. Tang Xiu was a bit at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. He didn't expect that Tang Xiu would cause such a big mess. But he was sure that no matter how big the fortune this guy got, he must have been packed up after he got home. Definitely. It was because the death decree from the elders of the Tangs saying that the juniors of the family were forbidden from acting like those silk pants and cause troubles outside. This guy is definitely not feeling well recently, no? Tang Xiu gloated. After half an hour, the taxi passed downtown. Just as it was crossing the flyover and coming down, there was congestion in the road ahead. Why is Qingfeng Road blocked again? Is there a traffic accident in front? The taxi driver used the intercom and asked. He quickly got the answers he wanted. It's because of a traffic accident. And let me tell you, the scene is straight out of a blockbuster. Some cars were in hot pursuit and the number of victims is probably more than 10 people. It's been a long time since such a big mess that happened in Beijing. You're unlucky, brother. You gotta pray for more blessings and good luck if you're stuck in Qingfeng Road. I'm afraid you're gonna be stuck for a few more hours. Who the hell is so bold to make such a big ruckus in the capital? Asked the cab driver hurriedly. With so many people dying at the holy ground of the emperor, are they not afraid of getting bad luck? I don't know anything more, sorry. Got it, thanks. As the conversation ended, the cab driver looked at Tang Xiu. Then, he forced a smile and said, "Well, it seems like we're stuck here until morning, little brother. It's impossible to turn around now either. If you're in a hurry, you can get off now and take the subway there, though." Tang Xiu thought for a moment and then took out 200 yuan from his pocket and handed it over to the cab driver, saying, "Then we're getting off here, uncle. Take the money and keep the change." The cab driver didn't expect Tang Xiu to be so generous and said quickly, "It's too much, little brother. I can't accept it." Tang Xiu pushed the door open and just waved with a smile. He then led Tang 28's group of 5 to the roadside and then walked along the road. Back when the cab driver used the intercom to ask about the accident, he was also very curious as to who could be so bold to make such a big mess in downtown capital. 10 minutes later, Tang Xiu and the rest appeared near the accident site, a wide intersection that now looked so chaotic with more than a dozen cars crashed. A lot of rescuers could be seen everywhere treating the wounded or lifting the dead bodies from the cars, causing him to furrow his brows slightly. What exactly happened here, big brother? Tang Xiu approached a middle-aged man who kept sighing and asked him after offering a cigarette. It's because of those evil guys. The middle-aged man forced a smile and explained, some people unknowingly offended the second young master fan. That fella brought many men with a dozen cars to chase and kill them and eventually led to these series of accidents. Alas, 3 of them died here and the remaining ones are injured and escaped. Yet that second young master fan didn't let them go and led many men to pursue them, abandoning those who got implicated in a car accident. Who is this second young master fan? Asked Tang Xiu, frowning. The middle-aged man glanced at Tang Xiu and asked, judging from your accent and that you don't know second young master fan, you're not local, are you, little brother? I really don't know him. I'm from Star City and just came to Beijing today. Tang Xiu shook his head. I see. It's no wonder, then. The middle-aged man nodded and explained, second young master fan is the son of the fan house's patriarch. Although no one from this family goes into politics, it's a very famous wealthy family nonetheless. Do you know the Sky Pigeon Group listed in the top 500 companies in the world? That's the Fan family's company. This family had a good reputation in Beijing prior to this incident, and now that its second young master caused so much a mess, I'm afraid their reputation is pretty much notorious now. Bah, if I were to have a son like him, I'd definitely break his legs and chain him at home, lest he go outside to court calamity and causes troubles. Tang Xiu nodded in response and asked curiously, where are they heading now? How would I know? A group of men in hot pursuit and the other one running like hell, said the middle-aged man. Who knows where are they going? You don't even know which direction they are heading to, asked Tang Xiu again. The middle-aged man pointed to the northeast direction and said, I know that. They're heading there. You can't be thinking of joining in the fray, can you, little brother? Don't get yourself involved, lest you get burned. You'd better put your curiosity away. Roger that and thanks a bunch, big brother. Tang Xiu smiled. Immediately after, Tang Xiu led Tang 28's group of 5 and quickly rushed to the northeast. He wouldn't have bothered to get involved in this matter if he didn't happen to bump into this accident. But now that it happened before him, he might as well figure out what happened. He had heard of the Fan family but hadn't had any contact with them yet, although one of his friends, Qin Shaoyang, had. From what he learned from Qin Shaoyang, the first young master of the Fan family was his sworn brother and he intended to introduce him to Tang Xiu before. The most important thing was that the Qin Shaoyang also had a business partnership with the Fan family, that it would affect the former if an accident happened to the later. Hello, Shaoyang. Have you heard that the second son of the Fan family just made a big mess? Tang Xiu dialed Qin Shaoyang's phone as he headed northwest. I heard the news about that 10 minutes ago, replied Qin Shaoyang hurriedly. This damn second fan is really outrageous. He just caused such a big shit this time. I'm afraid he'll implicate the entire Fan family and lead them to the abyss. I'm at home now and talking to my old man about the business we have with the fans. Alas, it seems like my family will get burnt one way or the other regardless.